Today we have Siri Baruc Thornton. She was born into a yoga ashram in Boston, Massachusetts in 1978. As a teenager, Siri became immersed in the world of Reiki and over the years became a master of masters. Siri is also a certified mountain breathwork facilitator, an instructor in Advanced Akashic Record Reader, and has been working in the clairvoyant field for years. Siri also helps women process their emotion and become more embodied. She co-facilitates the Embodied Woman Sisterhood and produces and hosts the Embodied Woman, which is a podcast too, a home for the authentic creative podcast. All of her services provide the ability for you to come home to the soul that you are. Okay, so we are gonna start this episode with my friend Siri. It's funny because I should say Siri, but I remember when you start sending those emails, that you always send that they're so empowering and I love them. And I was like, Siri is sending me emails. And I thought that it was Apple sending me emails. And I'm like, I can't subscribe. Why is she sending me emails? And then I start realizing, oh my God, it's not
It's the real Siri. Oh my goodness.
So
That's so
thank you
funny.
for being here. I'm so excited that you're here.
Oh, you're welcome. That reminds me of this time that my dad was getting Sirius radio station, but it wasn't saying the whole across the little dash thing that the readout in his car. It wasn't saying Sirius, it was just saying Siri. And he was like, why is Siri playing on my in my car? So yeah, it's become, my husband actually worked for Apple when Siri came out. He was an Apple genius at the Beverly Hills, the Beverly Center.
Yes.
And so, everyone he worked with was like aware of the fact that his wife was named Siri and this thing Siri had just come out. And now it's like this thing, but previous to the Siri app coming out, no one understood how to say my name.
Well, in Spanish will be Siri.
Well, I like how you say
Indian
it.
too, like it goes to Siri.
Well, it is actually Sikh Indian because my parents were in a yoga ashram and the yogi named me, so that it is Indian. Yeah.
Love it. But I wanted to interview you. I'm gonna tell you why. First of all, because you're a light. I know that you have had a journey to get where you are now, but when I see you, you always light up. And I love that. I love to have guests that don't allow circumstances to dim their light. And that's how you show up. I mean, I don't know if that's how you feel every day, but that's how you show up. And I know that's a decision we make every day, I mean,
Yes.
It's funny when my friend said to me, you could be an alcoholic, right? Because I went through so much.
Right.
I choose not to.
Yeah.
I choose my emotions every day like I choose my clothes, and I think you do the same thing, and that's beautiful about you.
Thank you.
You're
I try. I think we're all just trying our best. I have a lot of tools. I think you have a lot of tools, and I think we make it a priority to use our tools, and we make it a priority to evolve and serve. And I think that that's a commonality that we have.
Yeah. So having said that, I was reading some of your posts, and I know you have talked about this before, but it kind of surprised me that your mom said that you were born angry, because if I can describe you, I can use a lot of words, not anger. Yet, in my experience, anger and fear sometimes camouflage each other. So, and
That's
I
right.
have worked with kids before. I used to do therapy with kids, art therapy and stuff like that. And um, then I went to do it with single moms, and now my niche is, women that are stuck. But I learned the difference, and I learned how they camouflage their
Mhm.
fear just by
Mhm.
being a bully in school, by being angry with their parents, by throwing a fit or whatever. But I'm curious to know why your mom felt that you had anger instead of fear.
I think she, on some level, knew that I was afraid and that I was scared a lot of the time. But the way that it was coming out in her world was overwhelming. It was just being expressed mostly as anger. So there was a moment I remember, I think I was like 10, where she, instead of either ignoring me or responding back with anger or shutting me down or whatever, I remember she held me like a baby and like rocked me. And so that was her courage and her compassion, understanding, you know, like she was going to therapy, understanding, like, okay, let me try this because I know she's hurting. So I think she knew I was hurting, but in her transparency, she shared with me that she just thought I came into the world angry because I think she was just at her wit's end with, like, well, I don't understand this. And also, I think there's a level of her probably not being able to own any of it, because any of it that she owned, or maybe she did, but any of it that she owned as being a part of me expressing her fear or me expressing anger about how she was not showing up, I think would have been too painful for her because she already felt, and like I have other people that I can reference that I'm sure you can reference that have this, where it's like they can't own things because it's so painful,
Mm-hmm.
because they are so hard on themselves. So I think it's easier to point and say, well, you're angry and you've always been angry, and this is your anger and has nothing to do with me type of situation, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to her being like, I I think they didn't understand nervous system regulation, for one thing. Like, that's new, that language for us.
Right. We have a label now for it.
Yeah. We also we have access to responsive parenting now.
Mm-hmm.
We have, Instagram coaches and experts constantly sharing these wisdoms that they just didn't have access to understanding fully. Like, we went to therapy, but they didn't have somatic practices. They put me into acting, which was my savior, which was, my saving grace was starting to be an actor and
Mm-hmm.
being able to be seen and heard and validated and expressed and feel a sense of belonging. And then the healing practices, like, she really, really, really deeply healed me and helped me to heal and heal others with her discovery of Reiki and her discovery of people who channel and all of these things that she brought me into her world, like spiritual teachers she brought me into. So, like, the pain and the struggle and the anger and the fear that she had and that I also was expressing as well through our struggle with me and her and my dad and stepdad and all this stuff. You talk about, before we started, about blended families, like, that work, that was new as well, because it was
Mm-hmm.
only recently in their generation that people were starting to all get divorced. And so what
Right.
does this
Before
new
they
blended
just
family mean? Yeah.
stayed. Right. They
Yeah, they
stayed
just
because
stayed.
this is what you're supposed to do. I mean, I remember when I got divorced, even my relative, my mom, everybody was saying, what, are you crazy? You have 3 kids under 5.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Isn't it easier to look the other way? Isn't it easier to just pretend? And my answer was, it's not easy to look at myself in the mirror. And it's not going to be easy to look at 3 girls when they are in their 20s and be a billboard for them when I didn't stand by my side,
Yeah.
when I was not my ally.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's probably easier now, but I'm not thinking about now. I'm thinking about what's going to be later, and I refuse to shrink. I refuse to be that person.
Yeah.
So,
You're not going to abandon yourself anymore. I think that's new too, is this concept of not abandoning ourselves.
well, because for years we were taught that being um, self-conscious about our needs is being selfish or
Yes.
narcissistic or
Mm-hmm.
egocentric or whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want to call it,
Yep.
instead of and it's so funny because since I remember they have told us in the plane to put the freaking mask on us first.
Mm-hmm.
So they're telling you in a very clear example that
Yeah.
if you don't provide the oxygen for you first, you won't be able to help anybody else. And oftentimes we're in the plane and they start talking and we look the other way because we hear them so many times that why we don't waste our time. We know exactly how it works, but the message was there in our face. Put the mask on you first.
Yeah, I think it's a collective consciousness of sacrifice and martyrdom that we're stepping out of into from Pisces to Aquarius. And it's time for individuation and it's time for self reclamation and it's time for our own sovereignty and putting the mask on first.
Yeah.
And I think we're all just getting hip to that's actually not just okay, but it's necessary.
So what did you discover about yourself when you face your anger? Because I'm sure it wasn't just like listen, I was a teenage actress as well, and it was an
Okay.
outlet for me to pretend to be somebody else,
Yes. Yes.
um, because then I get to see how it feels to be happy
Yes.
and how it feels to feel free and how it feels. But then you come home and
Mm-hmm.
you're not that character anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's you, and you have to deal with the same things you were dealing before, and you can move to Timbuktu, and those feelings are gonna come with you to Timbuktu,
Yes.
and you're gonna wake up the next morning exactly with those feelings. Is
Yes.
geography, so when you at some point, because you didn't become this light person that you are right now that work every single day to hold on to that light and continue to grow overnight, and it didn't happen without going through that fire that we were talking before we start recording. You had to face those fears and like acknowledge them, and not only acknowledge them, but come to terms with what was real and what was created by your fear.
Mm.
Because you go from your thoughts create your emotions, and your emotions create your behavior. So I am angry because I believe A, B, and C. But when you really dig into the A, B, and C, and you realize that maybe A is okay, but B and C is just not even true, then you don't have enough evidence to support that anger. So what was the moment, if you can remember, when you said to yourself, wait a minute, I'm not really angry? What was that pivotal moment in your life when you felt that way?
Yeah. So anger from my mom is something that no one would ever guess that she has, right?
Mhm.
And it was very much a private experience that I had with her. And as you say, it came from fear. She had an abusive childhood. And
Mhm.
so it's ancestral, this ancestral trauma that's passed down. My dad was never felt, and he and I recently had a breathing with my breathwork facilitator, which was incredibly powerful, where we were healing my abandonment father wound, his abandonment father wound, and his forgiveness of his father on 4 years on the day of his father's passing, where we had 4 years prior been both helping my dad's father pass over.
Wow.
Like, so, and this breathing happened, I don't know, like a few weeks ago, a month ago or something. So it is gradual, that realization of the anger and how it was sabotaging me, and how I didn't have control over it. And, you know, the triggers come out in private. They come out, I mean, yes, okay, occasionally you could maybe catch me getting angry with my kid in public.
I mean, if you're human, it's
you
gonna
know,
happen.
But like, it's a private experience that would get triggered whenever I would be scared. Yes. You know, and a lot of it's abandonment or feeling unsafe. And so that is everything that I do, that I create, is with my work for others, is let me create safe space for you, because I know what it feels like to not feel safe. So I'm going to create that for you.
Priceless, because you cannot coach anyone, I believe, if you have not, and I know a lot of people are going to say that's not true, because there's a lot of coaches that they have not gone to those extremes. I don't feel that you can really identify with your client 100%. You can identify 60, 70, 80, okay, let's push it. But 100%, if you have not gone through that experience, or you have not had that belief. Because it's like, you can explain to me that fire is hot all you want. But until I don't put my hand on the fire, I'm not going to know exactly how hot that fire is.
Yeah.
And how that fire can burn my hand. I'm just going to go for what you're telling me. And I can empathize. And I can tell you, oh my God, that's terrible. I feel you. But do you? You know? So you going through everything that you went through has prepared you to be the amazing human that you are right now. Everything, you know? Even your limiting beliefs, even whatever you thought it was a fact, but it was a creation of your fear, everything that you went through. And I truly believe that. And when I talk to one of my clients and they talk about